Welcome back, everyone. We have another episode of Napoleon's Marshals. This is part 5. Are you guys ready for part 5? I'm ready for part 5. We got Suchet, Nay, and Soult. Lastly, right before we start, just another quick announcement. We do have a Discord server, so you can, talk to me. You can send the video recommendations through Discord. And yeah, you will be a member of the Discord community, and I will appreciate that. Now, let's jump in. Let's just go.
Terror belli, decus pacis. Terror in war, ornament in peace. The words inscribed on every French marshal's baton. In France, the title of Marshal, or Maréchal, goes back at least to the 13th century. It represents the highest possible position of military authority. Authority symbolized by a marshal's baton. The title was abolished during the French Revolution as incompatible with the egalitarian spirit of the age. But in 1804, Napoleon founded a new empire and restored the ancient rank. This is Epic History TV's guide to Napoleon's Marshals. All 26 have been ranked according to our own evaluation of their achievements as marshals, with expert guidance from Lieutenant Colonel Rémy Porte, former chief historian of the French Army. So far, we've met Marshals Pérignon, Brune, Serrurier, Kellerman, Grouchy, Moncey, Poniatowski, Jourdan, Bernadotte, Augereau, Lefebvre, Mortier, Marmont, Saint-Cyr, Oudinot, Victor, Murat, Bessières, MacDonald, Massena.
Just imagine having these men in your army. There are 6 of the greatest marshals still yet to even be talked about. Let's go.
6. Marshal Suchet.
If I had 2 marshals like Suchet, I would not have conquered Spain. And we remember he said that during the Peninsular War.
Louis Gabriel Suchet was born in Lyon, the son of a prosperous silk merchant. Plans to join the family business were derailed by the French Revolution. Suchet, an ardent Republican, joined the cavalry of the Lyon National Guard. In 1793, he was elected to lead a volunteer battalion, and at the Siege of Toulon distinguished himself by helping to capture the British commander.
So he was also at Toulon. We have so many parallels of individuals that were at Toulon.
General O'Hara. He also made friends with a young Major Bonaparte. Suchet went on to serve under Napoleon in his first brilliant campaign in Italy, fighting at Lodi, Castiglione and Bassano. Transferred to Massena's division, he led his battalion with distinction at Arcolay and Rivoli, was wounded twice and promoted colonel. It was in Italy that Suchet learned the most valuable lesson of his career. For troops to be effective, they must be properly paid, clothed and fed.
Very important, because without that, you have no army.
Something the French Republic consistently failed to achieve.
Especially the Italian campaign.
Despite proving himself to be an excellent organizer and dependable in battle, Suchet never quite made it into General Bonaparte's inner circle. He went on to serve as a highly effective chief of staff to General Brune, and then to Massena in Switzerland, and was with Joubert in Italy, who died in his arms at the Battle of Novi. Suchet was promoted to General of Division, and in 1800 he was given command of the Army of Italy's left wing. With Massena besieged by the Austrians in Genoa, the defence of southern France fell on his shoulders. In a brilliant independent campaign, he held the Austrians near Nice, then chased them back into Italy, taking 15,000 prisoners.
What an achievement.
Despite this impressive record, Suchet was not on the list of marshals created by Napoleon in 1804. Worse, in 1805, he was effectively demoted, being given command of a division in Marshal Lannes' 5th Corps.
I mean, there's a lot of people, though, that's bidden for that spot in 1804.
Nevertheless, it was a role he performed with great skill. His division distinguished itself at Ulm and Austerlitz, and the next year led the attack in Napoleon's crushing victory over the Prussians at Jena. The next year in Poland, his division saw hard fighting at Pultusk, but was then held back to defend Warsaw and missed the great battles of Eylau and Friedland. Napoleon,
very similar to the last guy we were talking about,
heaped rewards on General Suchet, money, titles, but still no marshal's baton. In 1808, Suchet's division was sent to Spain, where he'd spend the next 6 years.
Dang.
His first role was to support the siege of Zaragoza. Then, on Marshal Lannes' recommendation, Napoleon gave him command of 3rd Corps and made him governor of Aragon. Suchet found his troops to be poorly supplied, ill-disciplined and low in morale. Their first battle together against General Blake's Spanish army ended in a humiliating rout at Alcañiz. Suchet found the drummer who'd started the panic and had him shot in front of the entire corps.
Dang!
He then reorganized his troops and restored discipline and pride with 2 quick victories over the Spanish. He also faced a guerrilla war in Aragon, a popular insurgency driven by hatred of the French invader. Suchet drew on French experience of fighting counter-revolutionary insurgents in the Vendée, and realized that it was only by winning over the civilian population that he'd be able to make progress. He made it his first priority to ensure his own men were properly paid and fed, something almost unheard of for French troops in Spain. He enforced discipline and made sure requisitioned supplies were paid for.
I mean, not only that, you also have to make sure that those routes are secure, because without like cavalry units protecting these trade routes, you're gonna have guerrillas try to take them out and plunder.
He told his troops, "I will look after your well-being, and you, by your discipline, will give security to the inhabitants. You will make them, by your conduct, care for the government of King Joseph." He told the Spanish people, "My troops will not impede your harvests nor overcrowd your cities. They will live in the countryside, ready to protect you. Religion and clergy will be respected."
See, that is leading by example right there.
Crucially, Suchet also promised protection from the many Spanish guerrilla bands who behaved no better than bandits. His practical and humane approach won respect and brought results. The guerrillas could never be completely defeated, but Suchet made Aragon the safest and best-run region in occupied Spain. He extended French control of eastern Spain with a series of successful sieges at Lérida, Mequinenza and Tortosa. In June 1811, he took Tarragona.
I mean, that's a lot of territory that he took.
For this victory, Napoleon finally awarded him his Marshal's baton, the only one earned in Spain.
Wow. And that says a lot, given the, Massena had issues in Spain. You had a couple others that's escaping me right now. I mean, just about everyone had issues in Spain, because it's just a different geography. It's a different people. You had the guerrillas. You have Wellington, who's a class act of himself when it comes to being a militaristic leader. So Spain was a difficult task. You can argue that Aragon, this area at the top right, was not as bad comparatively to like the areas near Portugal. And you're right, but that's just how the ball goes sometimes.
Then he moved south. He defeated a larger Spanish force at Saguntum, then took the great city of Valencia, along with 18,000 prisoners and nearly 500 guns. Napoleon rewarded Suchet with the title Duke of Albufera. but the overall situation in Spain was deteriorating steadily. The partisans became better organised and supplied. The British Navy was able to land troops on the coast to make diversionary attacks, while Napoleon withdrew more and more units for his own campaigns in Russia and Germany.
Yep.
After King Joseph and Jourdan were defeated at Vitoria, Suchet had no option but to pull back towards the French frontier, leaving behind several well-supplied garrisons.
Ooh.
On Napoleon's abdication, Suchet remained undefeated, still holding the French frontier.
That is really unheard of, to have someone undefeated in battle. Now, he didn't have as many battles as other individuals, but that is quite a record.
When Napoleon returned from exile, Suchet went to meet him in Paris. It was the first time they'd met in person in 8 years. "Marshal Suchet, you have grown greatly since we last saw one another," the emperor told him. He entrusted Suchet with command of French forces in the south, an important independent command for which few men were better suited. Suchet dutifully kept France's enemies at bay until news arrived of Napoleon's defeat at Waterloo. Following the Second Bourbon Restoration, Suchet was dismissed and retired to his country estate, where he died in 1826. He was still held in such esteem in Aragon that a mass was held to pray for his soul in the Cathedral of Zaragoza.
He left a legacy.
Suchet was a brilliant commander, widely regarded as the best administrator in Napoleon's army.
That says a lot, especially when you're dealing with people like Bernadotte in that mix as well.
He was also one of the few who thrived with the responsibility of independent command. He never had the opportunity to prove himself on the war's decisive battlegrounds. But when Napoleon, in exile on St. Helena, was asked to name his best general, he replied, "That is difficult to say, but it seems to me that it is Suchet."
And we'll never know, like, if he would be able to stack up to the others on, like, an Austerlitz or like a, when, you know what I mean when I say Austerlitz, like like an actual, like, heavy charge, or a Lau or Elu or the Germanic battles, or the battles of France, or the battles against people like Wellington. We will never know, but it seems that he was quite good, and if he had a chance, he would definitely be placed in that position.
5. Marshal Ney.
The notorious Ney was priceless for his valor. His obstinacy. I don't think I've ever heard this word before. What? His obstinacy in retreats. He was good for leading 10,000 men or 2 divisions. Otherwise, he was a true idiot. Bro, Napoleon with these backhanded compliments. He's always like, "It was a great man. Yeah, but he was quite stupid." Or, "Yeah, he was good, but he was the most unlucky guy I've ever met in my life." Napoleon is quite mixed in his compliments, I would say.
Michel Ney was a cooper's son from Lorraine, a German-speaking region of France on the eastern frontier.
What's a cooper?
His father wanted him to become a clerk, but the young Ney, impetuous and headstrong, joined a hussar regiment instead. He soon distinguished himself as a fine horseman and fencer, and was a senior sergeant by the time of the French Revolution. When war broke out, Ney was made an officer, and became aide-de-camp to General Lamarche. His reports describe Ney as active, brave, and a skilled tactician. Ney served in the Netherlands and on the Rhine, fighting at Valmy, Jemappes, and near Winden. He was seriously wounded once and captured once. Fellow officers nicknamed Ney the Indefatigable. His men preferred Le Rougeau, the ruddy or red-faced. The 30-year-old Ney was now a proven brigade commander, despite refusing promotion more than once, regarding himself as unqualified. In 1799, following glowing
seems like he's quite humble.
reports from General Bernadotte, he finally accepted the rank of General of Division. In 1800, Ney and his division played a major role in General Moreau's great victory over the Austrians at Hohenlinden. This brought him to the attention of France's new first consul, Napoleon Bonaparte, with whom he'd still never served. When they met in Paris, they warmed to each other. Napoleon entrusted Ney the delicate task of imposing his Act of Mediation on Switzerland, which he carried out with swift efficiency. The same year, Ney married Aglaé Louise Augier, a friend of Josephine's daughter, Hortense, now Napoleon's stepdaughter,
Interesting.
drawing him closer to France's future imperial family. In 1804, Napoleon proclaimed a new empire, and Ney was made a marshal. The next year, he was leading 6th Corps to war against Austria. He was accompanied by Colonel Henri Jomini, a Swiss officer and military theorist. Ney had been quick to recognize his talent, giving him a job as his aide-de-camp and helping to publish his work. Jomini would win fame as one of the 19th century's great military thinkers, and served Ney well as his chief of staff on several campaigns. During the advance against the Austrians, Jomini encouraged Ney to ignore orders from Marshal Murat that would have allowed the enemy to escape. Their decision was vindicated when 6th Corps won a brilliant action at Elchingen that closed the trap on General Mack's forces at Ulm. Ney's corps missed the Battle of Austerlitz, but was in action against the Prussians the following year. There had already been signs that Ney's aggressive instinct, which made him a brilliant tactical leader, could also get him into trouble. At the Battle of Jena, Ney ignored his orders and charged straight at the Prussian lines. Becoming cut off, his troops had to be rescued by Marshal Lannes' corps. A furious Napoleon remarked, "Ney knows less about soldiering than the last-joined drummer boy."
Dang. That's probably where he gets that backhanded compliment from.
Ney was criticised again by Napoleon 3 months later, when his foraging raids into East Prussia appeared to provoke a Russian offensive. The winter manoeuvring culminated in the horrific Battle of Eylau, which Ney's corps reached only as darkness fell. That summer, Bennigsen's Russian army launched a surprise attack, hoping to encircle and destroy Ney's 6th Corps near Gutstadt. Ney, outnumbered 4 to 1, conducted a brilliant fighting withdrawal and escaped the trap.
That's good.
A week later, Napoleon caught Bennigsen's army at Friedland. Ney led a crucial attack on the enemy. "That man is a lion," said Napoleon, watching his advance.
So he's very true to one thing about Napoleon. He's true and he's realistic. Like, he's not gonna sugarcoat.
6th Corps' onslaught shattered the Russian left, leading to one of Napoleon's most decisive victories. For all his flaws, Ney had proved himself one of Napoleon's best tactical commanders, and was rewarded with the title Duke of Elchingen. In 1808, Ney commanded a corps during the invasion of Spain. He spent more than 2 years in the Iberian Peninsula, and like most of Napoleon's marshals, found it a bitter and frustrating experience. In 1810, he joined Marshal Massena for the invasion of Portugal, but deeply resented being placed under his command. He criticised every decision, helping to create a poisonous atmosphere at French headquarters.
Yeah, they were at each other's throats.
The French advance on Lisbon came to a halt at the lines of Torres Vedras. During the subsequent retreat, Ney again demonstrated his brilliant tactical skills, fighting a series of rearguard actions that kept Wellington's troops at bay. But Ney's fury at what he considered Massena's disastrous leadership boiled over into open insubordination. He was relieved of command and returned to France. But he did not remain in disgrace for long. Napoleon knew Ney's worth in battle, and that the army adored him. He'd been needed in Russia, and was recalled in 1812 with command of 3rd Corps.
Yep.
As the Grande Armée advanced deeper into Russia, Ney was always near the action, leading attacks at Krasny and at Smolensk, where he was wounded in the neck. Amid the slaughter of Borodino, Ney led his corps in attack after attack on the Russian earthworks. When they were finally taken, and he was told that Napoleon would not send in his reserves to follow up their hard-won gains, he exploded with anger.
Yeah, this is where Napoleon was like, if I have a battle tomorrow, I'll have no troops.
What business has the Emperor in the rear of the army? Since he will no longer make war himself, let him return to the Tuileries and leave us to be generals for him.
That's crazy.
It was typical of Ney's lack of restraint. But his blind faith in the Emperor did not survive Russia. Henceforth, he'd fight only for France. It was during the retreat from Moscow that Ney ensured his place among the legends of military history. Just 2 weeks into the retreat, the Russians routed Davout's rearguard at Vyazma, and Ney and 3rd Corps took over. Ney was not only an instinctive tactician and apparently immune to fear or fatigue, he could inspire or bully other men into superhuman feats of bravery and endurance. A French officer later recalled, "I can see him still at the spot where the fighting was hottest, speaking to the men, indicating to the generals what positions they should take up, animating all hearts with the confidence that flashed from his glances. He made an effect on me I don't know how to describe." At Krasny, when the rearguard got cut off from the rest of the army, Ney angrily rejected calls to surrender and led his men in an astonishing forced march across enemy territory, crossing the frozen Dnieper River at night.
Yeah, it was quite a lucky draw that he survived.
Personally pulling men from the river when they fell through the ice. Surrounded by Cossacks and down to 800 fighting men, they formed square and kept moving. Ney was
Those Cossacks, man, they were terrorizers.
more than a hero to the army. He was its talisman. News of his escape caused rejoicing throughout the army. Napoleon himself remarked, "What a soldier! The army is full of brave men, but Michel Ney is truly the bravest of the brave."
I remember that.
Ney led the rearguard for the rest of the retreat, and according to legend, was the last man to cross the Niemen River into Poland.
Yep.
His
Probably
leadership
not.
helped many thousands of soldiers to make it back alive. Ney was rewarded with the title Prince of the Moskva, and continued to serve throughout 1813, though his relations with the Emperor, and Marshal Berthier in particular, were increasingly strained.
Why?
At Lutzen, Ney was moved by the conduct of his young conscripts, who bore the brunt of Blücher's surprise attack, but fought back bravely, helping to win victory. Napoleon then entrusted Ney with command of 3 army corps, 84,000 men. But the plan for him to fall on the enemy's flank at Bautzen went awry. Badly drafted orders led to delay, and the coalition army was able to escape. Ney fought in the Emperor's great victory at Dresden, but 10 days later at Dennewitz, his limitations as an army commander were horribly exposed. Throwing himself into an attack, he lost control of the battle, and was badly beaten by Bernadotte's Army of the North.
I mean, Bernadotte's not a pushover at any regard here.
Ney was devastated by his defeat, but Napoleon kept him in command of his northern wing. At the gigantic 4-day Battle of Leipzig, he commanded the northern sector, holding the line until a shoulder wound on the last day forced his return to France. He rejoined the army in 1814 and fought in the defence of France, commanding the Young Guard, and personally leading a bayonet charge at the Battle of Montmirail. In April, Ney, outspoken as ever, was among the first to confront Napoleon with the reality of his position and force his abdication. Ney was feted by the restored Bourbon monarchy as France's greatest soldier, but he could not hide his contempt for the returning aristocrats who treated his family with disdain. When the king's niece reduced his wife to tears, Ney confronted her, shouting, "I and others were fighting for France, while you sat sipping tea in English gardens."
He's not lying. He's being 100% truthful on that one.
In February 1815, Napoleon escaped from exile on Elba and landed in France.
Well, when you say escaped, we gotta like he had a bodyguard. Like he had a big bodyguard unit. I mean, he didn't like escape. He took a ship and he went to France.
Ney was horrified by the prospect of civil war and promised the king that he'd bring Napoleon back to Paris in an iron cage. But he soon saw that the army was flocking to Napoleon's banner. When Napoleon appealed to him directly as the hero of Borodino, Ney made the fateful decision to cast in his lot with the emperor once more. When Napoleon advanced into the Netherlands in June to take on Wellington and Blücher's armies, Ney commanded his left wing. But he made a string of blunders. Against Wellington's troops at Quatre Bras, he was too cautious when he held the advantage. 2 days later at Waterloo, Napoleon left much of the tactical handling of the battle to Marshal Ney. It was a mistake. On his own initiative, Ney launched a series of mass cavalry attacks too early, and failed to launch any coordinated attacks on Wellington's position until late in the day. He had 4 horses killed under him, and personally led the last doomed attack by the Imperial Guard.
Yeah, I mean, that was right before the Prussians got there, or right when the Prussians got there.
Ney's courage that day was awe-inspiring, but his decisions helped to cause the French defeat. In the aftermath, Ney spurned several chances to flee France.
I mean, he basically is going to be committed for treason now because he was supposed to arrest Napoleon, but he joined Napoleon.
And was arrested for treason by the restored monarchy.
Yep.
A military court refused to pass sentence, so his case went to the Chamber of Peers. With the king's allies demanding that an example be made of Ney, the outcome of his trial was never in doubt. 5 of Ney's fellow marshals were among a large majority who voted for the death penalty.
Ain't that crazy? Look at these individuals right here. Victor, Suchet, Pernon, Marmont, and Kellerman. Now, my recollection isn't the greatest, so I'm wondering, out of these 5, did any of these 5 support Napoleon after his abdication? And if they did, they are 100% traitors to the whole cause of what's going on. I mean, not traitors, you know what I'm talking about. They are contradictory. They are not, my words are escaping me. 17 voted exile. 5 abstined, basically meaning they didn't vote. One person, okay, the one person that said not guilty, who was that? Is that anyone that I would know based off anything that we've heard? But think about that, 137 voted death. I wonder what you had to get, like, is it a majority rules opinion here? I have no idea how French politics works in the Bourbon Can't even say it. Anyway.
On the 7th of December 1815, he was marched into the Luxembourg Gardens in Paris. "Soldiers, when I give the order to fire, fire at the heart," he told the firing squad. "Wait for the order, it will be my last to you. I protest against my condemnation. I have fought 100 battles for France, and not one against her."
That is so true. It's a political death. It's a political death.
Marshal Ney was among the most inspirational battlefield commanders in history. A born soldier and brilliant tactician, unless his fiery temperament got the better of him. He lacked the confidence for high command, but under the Emperor's supervision, he proved one of the Grande Armée's greatest combat leaders.
Alright, give me Soult.
4. Marshal Soult.
I should have made a great example and had Soult shot. He was the greatest pillager of them all.
Jean de Dieu Soult was from a small town in southern France and enlisted in the Régiment Royal, aged 16. He became a tough, capable sergeant, and in the
He lived a long time, and just looking at that, he's 82 when he passed away.
build-up to the Revolutionary Wars, joined a new battalion of volunteers as their drill instructor. Soult's self-confidence and bearing meant he was soon made an officer. The unit went into action against the Prussians in 1793. In a brutal baptism of fire, half the battalion became casualties, though Soult's own conduct was praised. After a spell on the staff of General Hoche, he joined General Lefebvre's crack Vanguard Division. Soult learned much from Lefebvre, a future fellow marshal, serving first as his chief of staff and later as his best brigade commander.
It seems a lot of these people have the same, like, the rise to command. It seems like they always become a chief of staff, then maybe like a general of the division, and then they become continuously, they prove themselves, and then they get marshal status.
Soult's rise from sergeant to brigadier general took less than 3 years. In the process, he won a reputation as an organized and decisive commander and brilliant tactician. He also began a bitter, long-lasting feud with another rising star, General Michel Ney. In 1799, Soult established himself as one of France's best divisional commanders, fighting under Masséna's command at the Battle of Zurich. He was then put in charge of 3 divisions to pursue General Suvorov through the Alps, proving his ability for high command. In his report to France's new first consul, Napoleon Bonaparte, Masséna wrote, "For judgment and courage, Soult has scarcely a superior." The next year, Soult and Masséna were besieged in Genoa. Soult
He was part of that. Wow.
led a series of daring raids on the Austrian lines, until he was shot in the knee and captured. He was robbed and spent days in agony in a filthy hospital, an episode that may explain Soult's later reluctance to lead from the front. On his return to Paris, Soult received a hero's welcome from Napoleon. His rewards included an honorary rank as Colonel General in the Consular Guard, plus command of troops assembled at Saint-Omer for Napoleon's planned invasion of England.
That would have been insane. But Spain messed it up.
Soult, the old drill instructor, imposed strict discipline and trained his men hard, earning the nickname Bras de Fer, Iron Arm. Even Napoleon wondered if he was being too severe, to which Soult replied, "Those that can't handle what I myself endure will be left behind in the depots. Those that can will be fit to conquer the world."
Great ambition.
In 1804, Napoleon proclaimed his new empire, and Soult received his Marshal's Baton. The next year, his impeccably drilled troops became 4th Corps, the largest corps of the Grande Armée, and marched east to take on the 3rd Coalition. That December at Austerlitz, Napoleon entrusted Soult's corps with the main attack on the enemy centre. As he issued his final orders to his marshals, the emperor turned to Soult last and said, "As for you, Soult, I say only, act as you always do."
He was a favorite, you can tell.
Fourth Corps' attack was the decisive blow of the battle, though its success owed much to Soult's exceptional divisional commanders, Saint-Hilaire and Van Damme. With victory won, Napoleon acclaimed Soult the foremost manoeuvrer in Europe. However, it was observed that Soult was now less inclined to expose himself to enemy fire, taking a more managerial approach to command, though his planning, organisation and tactical instinct remained superb.
Sort of different versus like Ney and Murat.
The next year, Soult's corps played an important role at the Battle of Jena, and in the pursuit of the defeated Prussian army that followed. In the brutal winter battle at Eylau, his troops held the centre of the line. Soult's relationship with Napoleon was excellent, and the emperor frequently turned to him for advice, much to Marshal Berthier's annoyance. In 1808, Soult was ennobled as the Duke of Dalmatia, and later that year led a corps in Napoleon's invasion of Spain. When the emperor returned to France, he entrusted the pursuit of the British army to Marshal Soult.
And he did a decent job.
The British nicknamed Soult the Duke of Damnation, and he harried them through the mountains of Galicia to La Coruña. But in battle, he could not break their lines, nor prevent their escape by sea.
It's just such a difficult task.
Soult then marched south and occupied Porto, where rumours began that he was considering crowning himself King of Portugal. Whether the rumours were serious or not,
it would have never worked out. That's a load of barnacles right there.
In May, the British and Portuguese took Soult by surprise and drove him out of Portugal with heavy loss in men and supplies. This was the most ignominious chapter of Soult's mixed record in the peninsula. 5 years that saw sparks of brilliance, but also missed chances, shocking avarice, and a reluctance to cooperate with other commanders. Later in 1809, Soult replaced Marshal Jourdan as King Joseph's chief military advisor, and led French forces to a crushing victory over the Spanish at Ocaña. He then oversaw the French occupation of southern Spain. Appointed governor of Andalusia, Soult administered the region with cold efficiency from his headquarters at Seville, though avoiding harsh measures where possible. He lived in royal style, and notoriously looted Spanish churches on such a scale that he soon amassed one of the great art collections in Europe, worth an estimated 1.5 million francs. He was increasingly aloof, and even his aides found him difficult to like. Soult's character is hard and above all egotistical, one wrote. He takes no more than a passing interest in those around him. In 1811, with Marshal Massena's army stalled outside Lisbon, Napoleon ordered Soult to give support. Like many of Napoleon's long-range interventions in Spain, the objectives were unrealistic. Yet Soult marched north with 20,000 men, capturing Badajoz, but withdrew on receiving news of an enemy landing near Barossa. 2 months later, he marched north again to relieve Badajoz, now besieged by the enemy, and met Beresford's larger army en route at Albuera. Soult launched a flanking attack that threw the enemy into confusion, but he failed to follow up his advantage and left the tactical handling of the battle to others, nor was he on the spot to inspire his troops.
I mean, that just kind of like, that's on character though, of him not really wanting to risk too much. He's more conservative at this point in his life.
And his army suffered a bloody defeat. The next year, Wellington's victory at Salamanca forced Soult to abandon his palace in Seville and retreat to Valencia. Though that autumn, he had the satisfaction of reoccupying Madrid and pursuing Wellington's army back to the Portuguese frontier. In 1813, Napoleon summoned Soult to Germany, where he fought at Lützen and supervised the main attack at Bautzen. But when news arrived of the calamitous French defeat at Vitoria, Napoleon sent Soult back to Spain to take charge. Soult inherited a demoralized, disorganized army. He quickly imposed order, turned it around, and attacked. It was an impressive feat, but his mostly young conscripts were up against experienced, well-led troops. 2 attempts to relieve the besieged garrison of San Sebastian failed. Soult began a fighting retreat through the Pyrenees mountains back to France. Despite the limitations of his demoralized conscripts, he ensured Wellington's army had to fight every step of the way, counter-attacking whenever possible, and offering resistance till the end, even as Napoleon's empire began to collapse. The last battle of the campaign was fought at Toulouse, a bloody and unnecessary one, as Napoleon had
already surrendered.
Abdicated 4 days earlier.
For that, yeah.
Under the Bourbon Restoration, Soult became an unpopular Minister of War. Like Marshal Ney, he initially opposed Napoleon's return from exile, but saw which way the wind was blowing and rallied to the Emperor. Napoleon made several dubious appointments in 1815. One was to pick Soult as his new chief of staff, replacing Marshal Berthier. Not only did this waste Soult's command abilities, since his new role was merely to implement Napoleon's orders, Soult also inherited a complex staff system of Berthier's own devising. Crucial errors resulted during the Waterloo campaign, with orders going astray and commanders unsure of their role. Soult's warning not to underestimate Wellington's army was dismissed by Napoleon. "You think that because Wellington defeated you, he must be a great general. I tell you that he is a bad general, that the English are bad troops, and this will be over by lunchtime."
Napoleon had this continuous thought that they were always going to be superior on land just because the British were superior at sea. It was more or less like a yin and yang. He was thinking, well, you know, we're not that very superior at sea, but we are very superior on land. But the British aren't superior on land because they are superior at sea. This is just like an infatuation with that yin and yang of good and bad, when in reality, Wellington was a really, really good leader. And the British troops were, I mean, they were, think about how much money Great Britain had at this point. They were well trained, they were well resourced. They didn't have as much experience fighting. That's the biggest difference, is the experience. But that doesn't mean that the tactical or the strategy within the tactics or the resources or the manpower weren't there. They truly were. And you can see that through, you know, the uplift of Portugal and Spain. And then a lot of these armies were proxies to Great Britain, like Russia, Sweden, Austria, Prussia. They were proxies to Great Britain. The war as a whole was Alexander, Austria, and Great Britain. And then you had all the other people. And then it slowly kind of tickered away to Great Britain and Alexander. And that was it. And then everyone else was more or less a proxy to Great Britain. Great Britain ran the show. So, arrogance.
Following Napoleon's defeat, Soult lived in exile until 1819, then returned to France under a political amnesty. After the July Revolution, he served as a reforming Minister of War, and 3 times as President of the Council of Ministers, effectively France's Prime Minister. He also became the Grand Old Man of the French army, elevated to Commander-in-Chief with the exalted rank of Marshal General of France.
Wow.
Soult died aged 82 in the same town where he was born, known today as Saint-Amand-Soult.
Wow, that's cool.
Soult's record as a marshal was mixed. A brilliant and intelligent organizer, whose ability to deliver a master stroke or inspire his troops to victory waned with time. Yet he was one of the few marshals that Napoleon could trust with a large independent command, a quality he needed desperately, but found in short supply.
Great qualities.
Suchet, Ney, Soult. Join us for the final part of Napoleon's Marshals as we reveal our top 3, coming soon.
I know it's Berthier, I know it's Lan, but I don't know who else it is. I'll know soon enough, because we'll be recording part 6 very soon. So hit that subscribe button so you don't miss part 6. Leave a comment. What do you guys think? Suchet, Ney, or Soult? I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know. They're very similar to me. I'm gonna split hairs between Ney and Soult. They're very similar. I don't think Ney should be looked at. I mean, a lot of people that get executed, they don't get a fair shake because it was a political assassination. It was a political execution. Ney was. Let me know what you guys think. But until next time, hit that like button as always, subscribe as always, and peace out as always. Bye-bye.